you guys. So our team from Jacobs and Arellano is here. I think we're done with area and at-large updates. Any organizational updates? Okay, we don't have any of our government reps here. Yes, they had told me, and this is going to be a short meeting, so I am going to hand the floor over to Jacobs and Arellano. I'll give them an introduction, and then they'll give a presentation, and then, as we usually do, we'll do kind of an organized Q&A, if you don't mind all raising your hands, and we'll call on you. But this is not the outreach meeting. This is just this team being kind enough to give us their time, because I asked them to come and just give us a pre-introduction of who they are and what they're going to be talking about on the 14th. So again, the 14th of March is the first outreach meeting that will be managed by Jacobs Engineering and Arellano Consultants, and they, I believe, are the outreach specialists. So Matt, I know you're on the call. Jason's not on the call. Jose is on the call, and Aaron.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
all
great.
right, so thank you, Jose. I'm going to give the floor to Matt.
Please.
Matt Negrete is from Jacobs Engineering. He is, he's been with them for a very long time. He's done other projects in the city that have required considerable outreach. He knows what he's doing. He understands the process. He's been familiar. He's made himself familiar with the community. He has attended previous meetings where he's heard the input, so he understands that there's some controversy, and that while there are people who love the bridge project, there are others who still have their concerns. He knows, oh, there we go, Jason's in the call too. He knows that most concerns are focused on public safety. So he's familiar. He's not just jumping into this right now. And I will give him the floor so that he can introduce his team, and then you guys can go through. So Matt, you can introduce, whoever else speaks, and then go through that way, make your presentations, and then we'll do Q&A. So welcome.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that introduction. I think after that, I don't even need to say anything. We can just adjourn, but appreciate the tee up. I'm going to try and share my screen. And oh, actually, is that something?
Yes, let me give you screen share.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Just to have a little visual as we're talking here.
You should now be able to share your screen.
All right, so let me try this here. It went to the wrong slide. It's just, well.
If there's something you can share with me by email, I'm happy to share on the screen. Oh, there you go. We can now see your screen.
Okay, that's screen. So let me move this over to here. Are you able to see the PowerPoint on the screen?
It's actually your Outlook.
Email, yeah. We were seeing the PowerPoint.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
You got it.
All right. I'm used to Teams, so bear with me here. But yeah, so we've got a brief agenda here. We want to do introductions, get a little bit of background on the project, talk a little bit about our approach, talk about some of the stakeholders. We've heard some concerns about whether or not an EIR was going to be done for the project, so I want to address that. And then we'll talk about community outreach. And with that, my name's Matt Negrete with Jacobs Engineering. I've been doing transportation projects for the past 25 years, all throughout California. Excited to be working on this project. It's going to be transformative in terms of providing access from the park to the beach. So a lot of technical challenges and stakeholders, both from the public side and also the private side. Miriam, thank you for having us here. We're excited to talk to you about it. And Jose is the project manager from the city of Los Angeles. He was actually responsible for bringing Jacobs and Jacobs' team, including Arellano, onto the project. So Jose, when you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you for that, Matt. I usually have technical issues, so I just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, great. So just like Matt mentioned, my name is Jose Beristain. I'm with the Bridge Improvement Division with the Bureau of Engineering. Something that I like to tell everyone, and for some of you on this call, you may have heard this already, but I've been quite familiar and intimate with this project ever since I started in the geotechnical division back in 2009. So I was involved during the initial grading phase, during the landscaping phase, and now, fortunately, for the bridge project. As you guys already know, we got Jacobs on the team. I don't know how else to emphasize it, but we're very fortunate to have Jacobs on this project. They really are an A team, especially matched up with Arellano and Jason's team. So why don't we just move on to the next one?
Jason, can Jason introduce
Oh,
himself
of
real
course.
quick?
Yeah.
Sure. Hi, Matt. Jason Jackson, public outreach, working with Arellano Associates, supporting the Jacobs team. Very happy to be a part of the project. This is a fun project. Anytime you get into design, I have a love of architecture and creativity in general. So I'm very excited to be supporting. Thank you for having us tonight. This is a good first step for us.
Thanks, Jason. All right, Jose.
Yeah. So starting off a little bit on the project background, there are 2 open coastal development permits that were initiated as part of the initial construction for the George Wolfberg Park. And as part of those permits, we being the Bureau of Engineering, we were required to perform a feasibility study. And that feasibility study was completed in 2016. And the final results of that determined that a tunnel, or we had to evaluate a tunnel, at-grade crossing, and a bridge over PCH, and it was determined that the bridge was the most safe and economical alternative. And for those reasons, that's why we've chosen the bridge. And later on in 2021, we were able to secure $11 million in funding from Senator Allen's office. And just in terms of where we are exactly in project scope, we are working alongside with Caltrans in the PID phase, which is essentially the very we're in the infancy of the project's life, essentially. We're getting together our project initiation documents, going through the environmental phase, and looking at some preliminary alternatives at the time. And I think, Matt, you're up next on this.
Yeah, thanks, Jose. So big picture, what Jacobs is going to be doing over the next 2 years in partnership with the city is, we've got Jason and his team to be reaching out to the community throughout this kind of 2-year phase of the project where, like Jose said, we'll be doing the environmental documentation and then also some preliminary engineering so we can look at how we're going to get, bike and ped traffic from one side of PCH to the other. And then environmentally, understand the environmental impacts of that and get that cleared. Part of that is going to involve going out and doing some field work like surveying, mapping, geotechnical exploration. And then in the office, we'll be doing engineering work to come up with some alternatives to cross over PCH. One member of our team that isn't on the call is SPF Architects. They've done a couple of other high-profile bridge projects, one with the city of Los Angeles, the Taylor Yard Bridge, and then another one down in the city of Long Beach that's close to their downtown and very visually striking bridges. So they bring a very creative edge to the project, but then also very practical minded as well. So really excited to have them on the team. As I mentioned, we've got, Jose kind of touched on the previous project phases. Jacobs is on board for the next 2 years to do this environmental clearance. And we'll be reaching out to the public throughout this phase. I do want to make a distinction, going back a slide real quick on this map over here, right? We're talking about crossing over PCH. There's also the lateral trail project that I know a lot of community members are familiar with. And that was something that has been studied and is being studied by a different group at the city of Los Angeles. So the project that we're all here to talk to you about is actually the crossing of PCH. We understand that's 2 different ways to, get across PCH, one with the lateral trail, one with the bridge crossing. They are separate projects. So we're really focused on the bridge crossing with this project. And then, the next slide is about public agency stakeholders. But we also understand that we've got community stakeholders. And that's why, we understand the community's been involved. Miriam, you called that emergency meeting back in October, had, everybody on the call for 2 hours, deciding whether or not to support the project and what to communicate to the city, for the council's vision for that. So aware of that and aware of the meeting in early December, with CD11's, Council District 11's input, and Jose was at that meeting as well, presenting to, PPCC and the community. So just really understand the importance of this project to the community. And as you touched on, the sensitivity to safety and how that's really a concern, is making sure that you know, anything we do here improves safety in the area and doesn't do anything to diminish the safety in the area. And another thing that, you know, I've heard is that it's fine to do community outreach, but we need to do more than just attend a meeting. We need to listen and make sure that, you know, the concerns that we are hearing are able to be implemented in the project as best as we can. So we're here to listen and not just talk. In terms of public stakeholders, we have three key ones that are really going to be driving the project. We've got the California Coastal Commission, Jose already touched on. We've got Caltrans, we're crossing over their right of way and over their PCH facility. And so we're actually, you know, coordinating, working directly with them at development of this project. And then we also have LA County, primarily Department of Beaches and Harbors, but also Department of Public Works as well. So all these stakeholders will be weighing in throughout the process to help shape the project and you know, get to the finish line with it. One more thing before I turn it over to Jason. In terms of environmental documentation, I did hear in the meeting in October, people were saying, you know, why aren't they doing an EIR? They need to do an EIR. And I don't want to get in the weeds too much here, but we are going to be studying this project for its environmental impacts. And we do that through going through the California Environmental Quality Act and also the National Environmental Policy Act. So CEQA, NEPA, one's state level, one's federal level. And they really parallel each other, but they are a little bit different. But there's three levels of environmental documentation. The first one's a categorical exemption and categorical exclusion. And that's what we think that this project is going to need to fall under, just based on the level of impacts that this project is going to have to the environment, cultural, historical, you know, biological, what have you. We're in partnering with Caltrans, one of the first things we do is we say, here's all our project impacts. This is the level of environmental documentation we think we need. And then they actually will buy off on that. So we'll know by the end of summer kind of what level of environmental documentation we may need. If there's additional studies and impacts, then we may do an initial study environmental assessment. And then if you know, impacts are very significant and it warrants, that's when a project will get elevated to the environmental impact report or environmental impact statement for both CEQA and NEPA. So that's when an EIR or EIS would come into play. So we are doing our due diligence on the environmental side. It just may not be an EIR technically, but we will be doing environmental studies and getting environmental clearance. With that, Jason.
Yes, hello. So I do want to first apologize. I'm looking at this now and it looks like the last iteration of our presentation is not showing here. So I had some edits to slides 8 and 9 with some graphics and whatnot for you. So apologize for that. It was a matter of us working on two different drafts, one online and one that Matt had to share. So basically all that's to say is we are doing a very comprehensive outreach for this project. This was described to the leadership earlier this week, and really what we've planned for you is e-blast, social media, working toolkits into community leaders that can help disseminate information, working with the council office and the senator's office to help leverage their community and outreach. Postcards, we did a combination of direct mail as well as postal delivery to select properties around the border of the community that would face toward the bridge, as well as flyers that we've been placing postal public counters and posting boards throughout the community. So we're hoping you'll be exposed to a lot of these things. We've developed a fact sheet. We have a website also for the project on LABOE's site. These are some images. Thank you for switching that over, Matt. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The fact sheet is there in the center. Or the flyer, excuse me, is there in the center. The e-blast to the right of it, we have some social media widgets. Obviously, you can see we've created a consistent branding strategy for you. We've made sure that this messaging is consistent and approved at all levels, all the way up to the Senate office, to make sure that it meets with everyone's approval and communicates the right messaging for the public. Why that's important. It really is the goal of outreach to involve as many and as broad a community as possible. We do not want to just talk to the PPCC. You are an ever important group in this process, but this is about all of the Pacific Palisades. This is about the people that travel the corridor. This is about the people that use the beach. This is about the people that use the park. We want to make sure that we're reaching all of those folks and involving them in the process and making sure that no stone is left unturned effectively. We have 3 meeting rounds with a notification campaign supporting each of those rounds. The first is obviously for a meeting that we're preparing for next week. This meeting is basically just building project awareness, setting a process forward, making sure that everyone knows what we're doing, why we're doing it, and we can answer those baseline questions, bring everybody up to speed. Obviously, many of you have been following this project for years as it's evolved, and that makes it so much easier on me and my team because you already know. So we really have half the lift to get us there. But for those that don't know, we want to find those people, and we would love for your help and let your neighbors know and invite them to participate with you next week. And just get people involved. There is no such thing as too many people involved in public outreach. Second meeting. The second meeting will happen, I believe, just after summer, September-ish, I think is our target. This is intended to really bring back the initial draft concepts, bringing out those alignments and bridge types that we're going to be working on as a team, presenting that to the public, getting your input. Very important session, getting workshop feedback from folks on what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we can make it better, how we can solve the gaps in thinking that you see, and then taking that to the next level and bringing it back as a final completed presented concept, which will then be selected and a preferred alternative be selected by the city council. So that's our end goal for the project, is to get us to preferred alternative and move this project forward to construction. We want to complete this project for you, and this is obviously a critical step in getting us there. So thank you again for your part in being early and bringing us into your meeting tonight and letting us be a part of your session here. This is great, and we really hope that you will again help us get the word out and communicate with everyone in the Pacific Palisades to participate, so we have a very robust and effective meeting next week. If you go to the next slide, we have two things. Again, our meeting next week, Thursday, March 14th, starts at 6 o'clock. This is going to be a virtual meeting. It will be on Zoom. People will be able to comment either in written form or verbally, so you can be shy, it's okay. And then there will also be a survey which is running, which if you haven't taken it, have about 100 surveys thus far collected, but if you haven't taken it, it's Potrero Canyon Bridge Survey.org. This is available in English or Spanish, and we highly recommend that you take that after the call if you haven't, and welcome you to share that with anybody that is not familiar with it yet. Obviously, the more the merrier. Again, this is a survey that's going to ask questions on your habits, your intended use for the bridge, and then just general locational questions, like where you're coming from, how you would use it and things like that. Some amenity questions. So there's some kind of future driving questions, as well as questions that will help us just understand the perspective of your individual perspective. But we absolutely welcome and look forward to your input. And that's all I have to say for that. It looks like we do have a hand up. Christina Spitz, if you want to.
Well, so if you're done, we'll take the screen down and then we'll
Sure.
go to questions.
Thanks,
But before
Jason.
you take that last screen down, quick question for you. No problem. You had originally offered the community an email, but I didn't see it on that last screen. Is there still an email to be able to reach out to you?
An email to yes, we could.
It was like bridge project at.
Yes. Sorry, that was not added. Potrero Canyon Bridge.org is our website. But that's the website. It has all the core information. Potrero Canyon Bridge at lacity.org is the email.
Okay. And just so everyone knows, we put some of this information in our newsletter that went out, and then we also put in the information that you had shared with me last week,
Yes.
or with you and I last week. A couple of questions, then I'm going to give it to Chris Spitz. So we had given you guys a list of, I want to say like 50 organizations that were connected to the Palisades. You were talking about the fact that your outreach is going to be kind of broader based than just us. Will you reach out to those 50 or however many organizations?
We have a toolkit that's been approved. We're finalizing translation, and that hopes to go out tomorrow. We will be sending it to you folks, as well as the council office and Senate office and any other groups that are interested in sharing information. And that would be up to them, obviously, if they want to support communications for that.
Sorry, I'm speaking quickly because I know people are looking at the clock.
Sure.
So I know that the bridge obviously is going to serve more people than just Palisadians, and it's something the city would like to do because they call it a gateway into LA City from the westernmost corner. But I just want to remind everyone that Pacific Palisades will host that bridge for a long time, for generations to come. So the impact of the bridge is really important to our community because it's not a short-term impact, right? It's
Of
something
course.
we're going to kind of look generations down the line and see what kind of impact. So I just want you to be mindful of that as you go out into outreach. The city might love it, but the people who live in the Palisades have to live with it. So let's put their input into perspective. I'm going to hand it to Chris. This is my last question for you, Jason. When
Sure.
we spoke, I think Matt might have also said this, outreach was going to be in 3 phases. So there was
Correct.
going to be how we got here, need for the bridge, actual design and safety considerations. And each of those phases was going to have multiple community meetings. Is that correct? Or ultimately there are only going to be 3 meetings?
There are 3 meetings to this phase. So
Okay.
we are in the environmental phase right now, and there are
Okay.
three meetings to this phase. The end goal of this phase is a preferred alternative, which then you would go from there. So Jose,
Okay.
perhaps you could speak to that as far as any previous efforts and future efforts
Yeah.
that the city might have planned beyond that.
Yeah, just like Jason mentioned, we're in the very preliminary phases right now, and we have programmed three meetings. And then once we get approvals from Caltrans and the Coastal Commission and the other stakeholders, then we will transition over to the actual design stage. So actually designing, putting drawings on plans and getting those plans ready to go into construction. So that's a completely separate phase, a completely separate task. That won't happen for a couple years, but in those phases, we will absolutely have more community outreach planned for those phases.
Okay, great. Chris Fitz. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate your coming tonight and look forward to the meeting very, very quickly because there'll be more time to discuss all this later. It sounds like you're aware, and a lot of people aren't aware, but I'm sure that you are aware that a coastal commission permit is needed for this bridge. So that's part of the process, right? That you're going to be working toward.
Yes, and we're still, there's an existing coastal commission permit, coastal development permit that's out there that is leading to design this bridge, and we're not sure if we're going to amend that permit for this project or have to, obtain a separate permit. We'll be partnering with them, and the details on that are to be determined.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm very familiar. I've been dealing with this, as have several members of this board for many years. But the community is not aware, so that's why I bring this up. Secondly, there's talk about, you mentioned, possible alternatives and discussion of possible need for this. Is that going to be entertained during the first meeting and or maybe a few other meetings in the first phase, whether community feels there's a need? And the reason I bring that up is I'm the at-large rep right now on the board. I get a lot of comments from people all the time about the bridge. I know there are people who are in favor. There are people who express concerns. Some people are outright opposed. And I'm sure there'll be an opportunity for all of them to make their comments late as we go along. But one thing that came up just at this meeting was the lady I haven't met before, her name is Talia, asked about this very issue, whether she or others are going to be able to express their concerns or maybe issues as to the need for the bridge. So that will that happen in the next couple of meetings?
The meeting that's scheduled on the 17th is sort of for this phase of the project, the introduction of the project and an opportunity, to talk about what we're going to be doing over the next 2 years and then to hear feedback from the community. So if there's support for the bridge, support against the bridge, there'll be an opportunity for people to express themselves there. The project that we're doing right now is not going to evaluate the need for the bridge or not. We're already moving forward with the bridge, making sure that we can, accommodate the public's interest in terms of safety and what have you, and impacts, and understand all of that as we move forward with this. I don't know, Jose, if you want to
Yeah,
that.
The only thing I will add to that is that I will say that in the past 10 years that I've been involved in this project, it's been very apparent that the opinion of the community has been back and forth, in favor and not in favor. And so we actually had to delay Jacob's task coming onto this job because we were initially under the understanding that everyone was in favor, and then I guess last minute it was determined it was not in favor. So we had that December 7th meeting. I think it was December 7th, and there was an overwhelming consensus that the community was once again in favor of it. So I guess what I'll say with that is that we're moving forward based on the guidance of the council office, and they're guiding us and telling us that everyone wants it. So I guess to answer your
I'm
question,
gonna jump in for a second. I think it's useless to talk about if everyone wants it or they don't. I think the back and forth that you've seen is, some people will say, well, we've known about it. Some people will come and say, well, we didn't know about it. The reason we all overwhelmingly said, let's go to the outreach phase was exactly this, so that people would learn about it. They would understand what the elements are, where it's going to be, what it's going to look like, what the public safety considerations are going to be, so that they can be informed. Because conceptually, as you say, it just keeps going back and forth. So I don't know. I don't know if we're ever going to get to the place where we can say everybody is or isn't. I think everybody has issues and concerns. Some people think it's better to have, some people think it's worse to have, but everybody's got questions. So the sooner we get into this phase where you guys come into the community, engage for yourselves what the reaction is, what people's thoughts are, where their concerns lie, where their support lies, I think you'll better be able to gauge what this project looks like. I think the council office will do the same thing.
Yeah, the council office has really just sort of been our guiding light in terms of what the temperature has been like with the community, and they're just guiding us forward on it. So, yeah.
Okay, I encourage everyone to get into the outreach phase. I mean, what else are we going to do? Dave Card, you're sitting there. You know this better than anyone else. People have to become aware. They've got to, put in their 2 cents. Once you understand what people's concerns are, you can address them. Or if you can't address them, then, we've got to say, well, here are some big concerns and they can't be addressed, but we've got to get there.
Yeah, a lot of concerns are going to be addressed during this phase, but you can understand that. I think people need to understand that not every single issue is going to be addressed in this preliminary phase. People want to talk about like gates and closing off and those items, and those are more design concepts rather than the preliminary environmental conceptual phase.
Okay. Well, okay.
Just a quick comment. It looks like I've been looking at the chat, and it looks like there's a question on who is the council office. It's Tracy Park's office that we've been working with. There's a number of folks, specifically right now, Juan, I forget his last name. Jose,
Fregoso.
Yes, is leading that project interface for us. They're in between staff members, and so he has stepped into that role while they're finding a replacement for the area director.
I will venture to say that most people on the call probably knew it was Tracy Park's office.
I know, it just, but just reinforcing, like, better not to assume.
Yeah. Okay. So any other questions? It is 6:06. And thank you all. I definitely thank your team, Jacobs and Arellano, for coming out here. Any other questions? People maybe we haven't heard from recently. Any other questions for these guys before we let them go? And everybody, please mark your calendars for March 14th and engage. Okay. Looks like we're good.
Miriam, thanks so much for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. We
Our
hope to
pleasure.
see you Thursday.
Thank you for coming to
All
our
right.
meeting. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye, you too. All right, everyone. We still have quorum. There are 42 people on this call. We're going to pass